Alright, hey, what's up guys? Shawn Ryan, Vigilance Elite again, here with Dave Rutherford, Navy SEAL, 18 Delta, motivational speaker, author, CIA, whatever, combat medic. So we're going to talk about TCCC, which is Tactical Combat Casualty Care. So
it's a mouthful, that's for sure.
So go ahead, man.
First off, thanks, man. It's just always a privilege to be out here with Shawn Ryan, Vigilance Elite, man. It's one of the joys that I get to experience, man, is just being, man, subscribe to his YouTube channel. Make sure you hit the bell on the bottom, because this cat is putting the best content out there, hands down. So that's my little plug for you, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Tactical Combat Casualty Care, man. This was a revolutionary thing in the entire combat medicine. I mean, it changed everything, bro. And everybody's like, all right, we've been training on it for 17 straight years. A little over that. Actually started in 98 was where it really started getting seated in the special operations, in particular in 18 Delta, or JSOMC, right? Joint Special Operations Combat Medic Course in Fort Bragg, which I went through in 98. And when we showed up, and they had all us there, right? All the Green Berets, all the Rangers, all us, Buds graduates. Man, I didn't even have my Trident going through. It was horrible. And all, PJs. So all these guys totally focused on medicine. And I was like, all right, I just want to learn how to give it an IV and a tourniquet. Let me out back to the platoon. But what was fascinating was the history of it. So everything changed. Everything prior to the Black Hawk Down incident in 93, right? Prior to Mogadishu. The basis of combat medicine had really been taken over post-Vietnam by civilian paramedicine, because ride length times had really shortened. Emergency medicine had really improved in the hospitals in these major crime cities, New York City, LA, Chicago, where trauma was exploding. That's where it shifts. So when there's no war going on, it shifts back into the hospitals. When a war is going on, man, we set the stage for all the advancements in that type of trauma medicine. So Black Hawk Down happens, right? We lose a bunch of dudes. And as it comes out in the debriefs, it was discovered that maybe we weren't doing the right thing. 2 large gauge, 14 gauge open bore IVs, no tourniquets, stuff like that. It raised a lot of questions, let's just say that. And I know guys that were there. I went through 18 Delta with a guy that was on the ground for the whole thing, and been briefed by the Delta medic that was there on the ground. And what happened was this Captain Frank Butler, this really intelligent, smart doctor, team guy, looks at all this stuff, and says, all right, let's get into this, man. Let's look at all the injuries throughout history and what kills dudes on the battlefield, man. And it's pretty simple, right? Bleeding out, or basically, trauma, penetrating trauma to the chest, irreversible surgery-based trauma in your gut, or, blast injuries, penetrating trauma in the head, or, you're dead on your DOA right there, right? So the idea is, all right, well, what can we address? And the big ones are penetrating trauma through your extremities, right? Well, what's the easiest way to do it? Tourniquets, which all of a sudden now become at the forefront of what we're going to train. All right, what's the next one? Well, penetrating trauma through the chest. If you figure out how to stop the air from getting sucked in, your thoracic cavity, right, to cause that, tension pneumohemothorax, which kills guys. If you can stop that and get them, let them sit for a while, guys can live for a while with a gunshot wound to the chest and one lung even. So, occlusive dressings, bam. Just with those 2 things, man, you were raising mortality rates by 80%, brother. 80% on the battlefield, right? So there's some other things that came in. Quick clot, kind of these coagulative, remember you pour it in, and originally it would burn your skin, it would cauterize your skin, but now the advancements chemically, they've got an injectable thing that goes in for abdominal and chest. That's really great stuff out there. But those were the 2 key things that really changed. And then the order of, remember, ABCs, it always used to be airway, breathing, circulation. Well, with this now, we changed it up. We flipped it around, or I shouldn't say I didn't. I was just a newbie when they were teaching this stuff. So they flipped around and they started saying, all right, under fire, what do we need to think about first? And right, tactical combat casualty care. Well, the first thing we need to do is what?
Win the firefight.
Win the firefight, right?
Yep.
And there are a bunch of incidents, in particular Mogadishu. Well, once there was a casualty, like the whole crew went to this casualty and forgot that they were in a in a high threat, high risk tactical environment. So just that alone, in terms of platoon commanders, chiefs, or master sergeants, whoever was in charge of ODAs, wherever, man, just that alone was saying, hey, just because we have a casualty, it does not redirect the entirety of the mission focus, which was huge. So that changed, right. And the next one, obviously, is once you gain fire superiority, you know, then you deal with movement. And it becomes, let's get that guy out of here. Let's just not sit on the X and treat right there. Let's get off the X, get some cover, concealment, time and opportunity, and now all of a sudden let's address the casualty. Right? And then once you're in that space, boom, tourniquets. Well, people are like, well, why can't, if a dude's not dying right away, why can't he just apply his own tourniquet, right? Thus, that's why everybody should basically have, if you're in a combat environment, 4 tourniquets at a minimum on you, right? Civilian, 1 is enough probably. But in combat, you definitely have to have 1 for every extremity, plus an occlusive dressing. But in the first parts of the gunfight, man, that's really the thing. Then you get to that cover and concealment, then you can go down the line and move into the chest seals, good bandaging, you know, policing the guy up, take out litters, whatever, and really kind of stage it in a more methodical, better tactical mindset. And that's what this did. And man, you know, I remember going through in 98, we were the 2nd class in the new place out in Bragg, and we spent a month just running through TCCC. And when I got to the teams, we picked it up. I went through this wonderful course in 98 called Advanced Battlefield Trauma. It was so awesome, Shawn, man, you would have loved this course. I thought every SEAL should have gone through it. They basically took, I think there's 16 medics. We went out to the island. We spent 4 days going through the entire TCCC curriculum, and we had 4 doctors, and we said, does this work? Does this work? And we hashed everything out, and they proved everything. Then we went out and we did man-down drills morning, noon, and night, brother.
Oh, man.
I never did more man carries in my whole life, dude. We put tourniquets in a boat. I gave IVs on a Zodiac. I gave IVs in a Briar Patch. I gave IVs in a Helo at night on nods, man. I did everything everywhere, and so did everybody else. And each guy would move around to take the role as the platoon commander, the medic, and then just the nugs, right? And so it really created this comprehensive overview and understanding of what it meant for that comprehensive TCCC. And that was where my skill sets just jumped. Fast forward, I become a SQT instructor, a SEAL qualification instructor. That's where we met. And I was in charge of doing all the scenarios that we went through. Now, one of the interesting things was, you know, I punched out after a combat deployment to Afghanistan in 2002, used TCCC myself there, and coming back and then teaching it to you guys. What I always thought was fascinating is once you guys got into Iraq and that popped off, man, we really saw it come into play, if I'm not correct, huh?
Yeah. You know, so just breaking it down real quick, TCCC is, it's like a process that you go through. So if you can't win the firefight, then you're going to take more casualties. So the most important thing you want to do is win the firefight, all right?
Absolutely.
Then pulling them off the X. The X is where the initial contact happened or where the bullets are flying to, all right? So you got to get off the X to some type of safety before you can safely treat somebody, okay? So that's kind of like, it's tactics and medicine all
combined,
lumped into one huge, very in-depth, very
kinetic,
intense,
dynamic
course. So, you know,
when you were in Iraq, were they? When you guys were hearing about casualties, TCCC, just all the lessons learned just started compiling, if I'm not mistaken, right?
It kept evolving, and I mean, I don't even know how many TCCC courses I've done, and live tissue labs and moulage labs, and I mean, from when we met, it was tourniquets, IVs, occlusive dressings. I mean, it's always been that. IVs have kind of gone to the wayside.
Yeah.
It seems like, but minor things have changed. They come up with new tourniquets. They came up with, the Ashman chest seal kind of went away, and now they have that new one. I can't remember what the hell they call it, but it's always little things that change. Like how long can you keep the tourniquet on? I remember, I think initially it was like above the elbow, and then guys kept dying because they were missing entry wounds. So then it became, don't just go above the wound that you see, just go up on, all the way up on the extremity. That way you don't miss anything.
And then readjust on triage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
when you reassess, when you take the clothing off, look, and if you can lower it, great. If you can't, then but initially, that's what they started coming out with, was just put it up as high as you can until now, you take over.
When you switched over and started contracting for the agency, were they training the same level as you were getting in the platoons?
I would say, I don't know if I would say it's the same level. I think the training was just as good. It was just very different because you're running 2 guys versus 16 dudes, or however many guys are in your team and task unit, whatever. But yeah, so I mean, same concept but completely different because
your operational profile,
or it's you and one other guy or a couple other people, or so. I mean, the med stuff had evolved, a little bit, same type concepts, but the tactical portion was completely different.
Completely different. I remember when I first went to work for the agency, I was actually training case officers for 2 years before I went on and started doing what we did. And
you helped set that whole program up.
No, I came. It started about 3 years prior to me getting there. What I did when I came in is I helped revamp the medical portion, the TCCC portion of it, and then we actually helped them make the transition to bring it in-house through a particular group within the agency, and we wrote the curriculum. Me and another guy who's still a reservist in the Army, who's one of the greatest curriculum development guys I ever worked with in the world, man. The guy was genius. And then another guy out there who's really smart SF medic. We all worked together to create this curriculum and really take it to the next level. So I remember, teaching this stuff to case officers who would be working with us, or they would actually be working with our guys, going out with the Tier 1 units, or even with the regular teams or ODAs. And man, it was really cool to see the aptitude that this stuff, because of the structure and the technical, methodical way TCCC is implemented in a firefight. Even case officers, were able to pick it up rapidly and be able to do it under high stress, which was a really cool thing. And then obviously going operational, where we came together again. It was always nice to see, that regardless if it was 2 SEALs working together, if it was 2 Green Berets working together, a Green Beret SEAL, Ranger SEAL, a MARSOC guy, SEAL, whoever it was, an agency guy, no matter what, when we worked together, TCCC, it didn't matter. The fundamentals were universally applied across unit tactics.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of the history and how it's evolved, and kind of like what TCCC actually means, which I think a lot of people have kind of gotten away from the meat and potatoes of it.
And there's a truckload of information online. You can go read. There's a lot of history behind it that you can look up. There's a ton of actual good medics out there that are teaching this stuff. You can find a lot of baseline videos online. Highly recommend that. I know we're going to be putting out some more TCCC videos. We're going to do actually a TCCC Vigilance Elite course here coming up. So please, contact Shawn, and you'll see my ugly up mug out there. And I'll be putting a tourniquet around your neck. Just
oh
kidding.
Boy. All right. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channels. Team Froglogic, Vigilance Elite, Instagram. Shawn Ryan 762, Vigilance Elite, Team Froglogic, Team Never Quit. And hit that bell at the bottom, and we'll see you next week.